I now call the meeting to order. First of all, item 1 on the agenda, confirmation of minutes. The minutes of the 17th of November 2014 have already been distributed to members. The Secretariat has not received any proposal for amendment up to this moment. I'd like to invite members to confirm the minutes. If there's no objection, minutes confirmed. Number 2, information papers issued since the last meeting. Since the last meeting, the Secretariat has not issued any information papers to members. If members have no further comments, we'll proceed to item 3 of the agenda, date of next meeting and items for discussion. The next meeting will be held on the 6th of February, Friday, at 8:30 a.m. in Conference Room 1 of the LegCo complex. For the agenda of that meeting, we'll first receive a briefing from the Secretary for Home Affairs on the 2015 policy address of the Chief Executive. And the administration has proposed 2 other discussion items. Number 1, review of the honorarium arrangement for district council members. And number 2, progress of the Kai Tak multi-purpose sports complex. So there will be 3 items on the agenda. First of all, briefing by the Home Affairs Bureau on the policy address, and then the other 2 discussion items proposed by the government, as mentioned. As we need more discussion time, if there's no objection, I'd like to extend that meeting to 3 hours. That is from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. So if there's no comment, we'll endorse these suggestions. Ms. Sito, Madam Chairman, there are news reports that for this year's policy address, there will be huge coverage on youth policy. This morning we heard that every young person will be given tens of thousands of dollars to set up their business. On the outstanding items list, we also have an item on government's policy on youth development. Yes, we of course have to receive a briefing from the Secretary for Home Affairs, but should we not also, as soon as possible, discuss youth policy? Thank you, Ms. Ho, for your suggestion. I think we'll first receive the briefing first on the policy address. If the policy address is closely related to youth policy, as we also have the intention of advancing our discussion on youth policy, we'll first listen to the policy address briefing first. Chairman, would you consider inviting members of the housing panel as well to attend to this issue? That is, we're not going to have separate handling by separate panels. All right, point taken. So we'll proceed to the discussion items. Please invite the officials to enter the conference room. Development of football in Hong Kong. The Secretariat has already received a background briefing for members that has been distributed to members. And the government has given us some papers on the item as well. That is paper 543 for the year 14-15 bracket 03. Good morning.
Jason.
In attendance today, we have Mr. Zhang Tak-sing, Secretary for Home Affairs, Mr. McKinley, Mr. Brian Leung, Mr. Lee Tak-nan, and Professor Loy Tak-nan, as well as Mr. Aaron Chang. If the Secretary is ready, let him give us a briefing. Thank you, Chairman. Members will recall that in March 2010, we reported to this panel the result of the consultancy study on the development of football in Hong Kong. In the same year, we allocated funds to the Football Association to formulate the directions for change entitled Project Phoenix. And then it was endorsed that over a period of 3 years from 2011-12 onwards, an annual allocation of $20 million up maximum. Up to the end of last year, the administration released around $46 million to the Hong Kong FA. To monitor the progress, we've set up a task force led by the Permanent Secretary for Home Affairs and comprising members from the sports sector as well. They're also here. The task force is responsible for considering the annual plans as well as other funding allocation. The task force convened 13 meetings up to this moment and reported regularly to the panel. In 2014, there was an overall review on Project Phoenix to vet the progress under Hong Kong FA. The task force is of the view that for administrative and sports personnel, they have promoted sports in Hong Kong, including the promotion of youth football, women's football, and establishing the Hong Kong Premier League. Internal governance and financial and administrative measures were effective. There was good progress. The government is of the view that the Hong Kong FA can promote market conditions and increase proceeds and strengthen its governance capability. The Hong Kong FA submitted a 5-year strategic plan for 2015-2020. On the basis of Project Phoenix, we're of the view that that will be a progressive blueprint for football. After the completion of Project Phoenix, time-limited allocation of funds should be given to the Hong Kong FA such that it would be strategically and financially equipped to carry out the strategic plan. The government suggests that from the 1st of April 2015 to the 31st of March 2020, a maximum of $25 million would be allocated to the Hong Kong FA. And the Hong Kong FA has to submit applications for the vetting of the task force. To monitor the use of the funds, we'll sign an agreement with the Hong Kong FA such that objectives would be set and attained. The Hong Kong FA has to submit annual plans to the task force on the objectives and indicators in the plan. And for objectives not attained, there should be explanation. And the interim review will be completed before mid-2017 and assess whether or not the funding level would still be appropriate. On other aspects, we'll increase support for the Hong Kong FA. LCSA, through the District Football Funding Scheme, have increased funding level by 76% since 2011-12. And the number of teams as well as people participating in school promotion schemes have increased. Apart from launching the strategic plan, at the district level and in terms of facilities, we've adopted measures to support the development of football. In 2011, we got this district football funding scheme to provide direct supplementary financial support to the 18 district-based senior teams. We also try to enhance the governance of teams. We propose to continue to support district teams. To review the effectiveness of the scheme, starting from this quarter, reports will have to be produced on the objectives. We've also started the third generation artificial turf for the use of the public. Starting from 2011-12 season, the number of available pitch sessions has increased by over 7,000. We also launched the plan for a football training center to provide training venues for football. All in all, we've made progress on any front, and the Hong Kong FA has progressively implemented Project Phoenix. That's a basis for the new 5-year strategic plan to help with the continued development of football. Thank you, Chairman. 7 members would like to speak. Dr. Chang Lai-wan, Ma Fong Kok, Kenneth Chen, Chong Shu Kan, Tang Ta Piu, Ng Leung Sing, and Leung Chi Chang, and also the Deputy Chairman. I suggest that we allocate 4 minutes to each member. So please get ready. Dr. Chang Lai-wan. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to ask the Secretary a question. This time, we're asking for $25 million every year for 5 years. So that's around $1.5 billion. $150 million. $125 million. Sorry. That's not too much. I think 5 years ago, you also had objectives and indicators. Have you attained those? Secretary, under the Project Phoenix, there was a series of recommendations and indicators. We've already set out in a table those indicators, and quite many of them have been completed and some are underway. As I said, they had made progress. Can you let us have the list of indicators? We'll discuss this after the meeting. And then, Secretary, in the past 5 years, we actively developed Project Phoenix and football. Did you experience any difficulties? What's your greatest difficulty? Well, will $125 million be enough? In future, what more support we need from the government? Can I also have some answers from the football sector? Maybe we should have Mr. Leung, the chairman of the Hong Kong Football Association. Mr. Leung? Well, the annual funding is not enough for every football team for the professional league. Every team will be paying over $20 million, totaling $100 to $200 million. So the public has actually invested a great deal on football. As for government funding, it cannot cover what we would like to do in the past, although we tried our very best to enhance the platform, coach training, referee training, player training, etc. So we spent a great deal of effort on those. So we ourselves have invested other resources into the industry.
Well, one key question is this. I'm not familiar with football myself, but I think that for a sector to develop well, the quality should continue to improve. And most importantly, we need talents. And one of the major attractions to cultivating talents is prospects or remuneration or benefits. But I see that now in terms of benefits and prospects for footballers, they're not very good. And for retired footballers, I've heard that they're in fact facing quite a hardship. Mr. Lau. Well, I've been chairman for so many years, and from my experience, for professional footballers, as long as they work hard, actually their income is quite good. It's not as bad as some people think. It ranges from a dozen or tens of thousands of dollars a month. And for coaches, after they take part in our training programs, they can continue to be coaches after retirement. And some may even earn several $10,000 a month after retirement, because many youngsters are keen on football nowadays. Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. I think to develop football in Hong Kong, we need a long-term goal. For Japan and South Korea, for example, these two countries took more than 10 years for the development of football to be implemented. And I think for Project Phoenix, I think more or less the targets have been met. For example, the governance of HKFA has been improved. So I support its continuous development, and that should be commitment on the government's part, say in a 10-year term. However, on government's financial support, I think, as Mr. Leung put it just now, it is not sufficient. So the problem is, or the question is, how the government can promote input from the community. For example, for the Hong Kong Jockey Club, they have started football betting for a number of years already. And I wonder if they could make more commitment to support the development of football through benefits from betting income. And also whether the government can promote football sponsorship. This is very important, but so far I don't see any significant improvement in this regard. Secondly, to make football more popular, as mentioned in the Project Phoenix, you should also promote small-scale football games. Or, for example, the relevant association has yet to get any regular funding from the government. For example, secondary school football, has any promotion been done? Can we provide simple facilities for football players at the secondary level? For example, in Brazil, they have something similar, and it's very good for youngsters to train their skills. And we don't have any cul-de-sac or simple playground for them to practice football there. So do we have some simple facilities for school children to practice football? And thirdly, about coaches, as Mr. Leung said just now, we don't have enough coaches in Hong Kong. So something should be done for the overall improvement of the football sector. I think it is very important. Perhaps something should be done in these areas, and I'd like the government to respond to these questions. Regular or long-term funding. Well, I'll ask Mr. McKinney to say something about the futsal or the mini soccer games. He's also one of the players. Now, on long-term funding, I agree with Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. That's why we have a 5-year strategic plan to support the Hong Kong Football Association. At the outset, we agree that it should be a term of 5 years to show our commitment. I think it is very important. And we'll find time to answer the second question in a moment. Dr. Kenneth Chan. Good morning. If you've read the LegCo paper, you would understand that we're very concerned about the development of football in Hong Kong. we want more spectators and more players, and we hope that the government would support the development of football. We also want more young people to take part in football games. And in 2014, I put 2 questions during LegCo meetings. I urge for value for money audit on the work of the Hong Kong Football Association, and that yet my request was not acceded to. And Professor Loy was a member of the Football Task Force, and yet we didn't get much information despite repeated questions being put, and we don't know whether the funding allocated would really help development of the football sector in Hong Kong. For the Project Phoenix, we only see a 2-page summary here. We don't see the full report. So my first question is when you're going to make public the full report of Project Phoenix, because in 2009-2010 you conducted a consultancy study with a lot of indicators and with commitment of funding to improve governance. We don't want to see only more expenditure on administrative and management staff. We want to see improvement in the overall situation of the football sector. So sorry, Secretary, you talk about performance indicators, some of them being met, and some of the initiatives are ongoing, but let's not let's stay in focus. We have medium and long-term indicators, so please give us a full report. Secondly, for the 5-year plan, there'll be commitment from the government, but can you also make public the details of the financial commitment for public's participation, so that we know not only that there is government funding, but also what will be achieved, and there should be public accountability. After 5 years, if Project Phoenix does not meet its target, somebody should be accountable. Otherwise, we will not continue to disperse funding. So first question, whether the report will be made public.
Okay. Very quickly. In terms of the Project Phoenix, a full review was done by the FA itself, which is, I think, available on the FA's website, but we can certainly let members have that. In addition, the Football Task Force itself took account of that review and did its own review. And again, we can make the full document available, which rides on the back of the FA's own review. As for the 5-year strategy document, that of course is the property of the HKFA itself. But I do believe, again, that a copy of that strategy will be made available on the FA's website. So that will be the full strategy together with the targets that are set within that strategy.
Apart from this public information, public accountability is also very important. When our ranking drops, well, who should be responsible? Secretary or Mr. McKinney? Well, as Mr. Ma said just now, to revive football in Hong Kong, it takes time. We should not just look at our ranking at a particular moment. But last year we had the football rigging and poor treatment to footballers, scandals like that, and the government should not turn a blind eye to these reports. Mr. Christopher Chung, I agree that I agree with the government's effort in promoting football for the past decade, but I think the subvention is not sufficient, because for Eastern District we've been in the 3rd division for many years, but we dare not raise ourselves to the division above because of the funding problem. And I see for the Southern District they also have the same problem. So at least we need $500. I mean, we need $500 funding, because for amateur football teams it's difficult to get funding. Secondly, on improving facilities. If you want Hong Kong to play up to its reputation, you need international events. And for turf pitches, you really need to revamp the pitches afresh. And I understand the problems because at the time you asked Jockey Club for funding, and for the Wembley company from UK to manage the turf pitches. Well, the soil and the grass was loose, but for football games it should not be managed the same way as the race course. So I think the only alternative is to scrap the whole pitch and start afresh, including a new irrigation system. So any plan to implement this as soon as possible? Secretary, I thank Mr. Zhong for his comment. On the second part of his question on football facilities, yes, we need continuous improvement for the Hong Kong Stadium. This year, we are going to have a major project to improve the facility of turf pitches. As for support for football teams, we will also step up support, of course. On the one hand, the use of government funding is subject to public monitoring, and we also need to consider allocation of resources. I have a list here for the Eastern District football team. It's in the 2nd division, and it receives a funding of 350,000. Next, Mr. Tan Ka Piu. Thank you, Chair. Sports development entails two major factors. One is more players, and the number two is more spectators. So your 10 indicators are very clear. For example, to improve substantially the number and the quality of coaches and players. In Tung Chung, I organized some free training programs before, and we had former First Division footballers coaching youngsters for free, and it was a good initiative. But as I talk to parents, they like their children to play football as amateur players, but not as professional players when they grow up. So will one of your goals be encouraging football players to take up football as a profession, so that for youngsters who are keen on football, they could aspire to become professional footballers? Do you have this goal? And if you have this goal, can it be quantified? The second factor is spectators. And I read that in 2014, per game, there were 900 spectators. For the Premier League, you aim to have 3,000 per game. How are you going to reach that figure? Who would like to respond? Yes. For football spectators, well, in particular, youth training is very important, because according to parents, they would not like the young. Well, according to you, you said that parents wouldn't want their children to become professional footballers. But from the parents that I talked to, they would like their children to continue to play football. And some footballers in Hong Kong nowadays can earn a living in mainland teams.
Moreover, you mentioned our coaches. We actually trained many coaches. Skills are very important. If you don't have a good coach, it's useless for that coach to train the young people, young players. So in the past few years, we trained a lot of coaches and referees. As regards the number of spectators, we already tried our very best to do a great deal of work. Well, since September 2014, how many spectators per football match? Around 1,000. Mong Kok Stadium has the best facilities. As for other stadia, the facilities are very poor. I want to see improvement. You should build more stadia like Mongkok Stadium. Mongkok Stadium got a lot more spectators. If a stadium is in a remote area and the facilities are very poor, it will not be able to attract spectators. The number of professional players, is that your target as well?
For more people to be playing football. So that includes junior development, it includes obviously the women's football. It doesn't have a specific indicator for the number of professional players.
So you don't need a real figure indicator. You only need to have a trend.
More people playing football. There's no separate category for the number of specifically professional male players playing football.
好，下一位係吳亮星議員。
Mr. Ng Liang Sing, thank you, Chairman. Here, many of us love football. I also declare that I love football. I'm a player as well as a spectator. For the past few decades, I've witnessed the ups and downs of the football industry. Mr. Leung, the chairman of HKFA, is a committed person, and many people in Hong Kong spend money and effort on football in Hong Kong in order to attain improvement. We're told we got 1,000 spectators per match, but back in those years, people even climbed up the hill to watch football matches. So it's natural that we need public participation. As the CE said, if we would like to have some input for GDP, then we should model on overseas experience. That's even better. But of course, in Hong Kong, we cannot talk about internationalizing football because Hong Kong is small. If you want to get more sponsorship, you have to generate a healthy cycle. If you have more spectators, people will patronize matches and people will be willing to pay money. As far as promotion is concerned, as the government said, there were training programs for coaches and referees. This morning, the heated topic is education. If training is good, the products will be good as well. For the Phoenix project, it must be a real phoenix. It must not be just a chicken. So how are you going to attract interested students? The government must have plans to attract students to join football. So what about technical training as well as conduct training? You mentioned quite a lot about skills training, but what about the conduct of players, including knowledge about the rule of law? That is, training for players to be law-abiding. Otherwise, our football players will still be engaged in football rigging, and you won't have fair referees as well. As a result, spectators will be driven away. So I'd like to know in the Phoenix project what elements are there to guarantee improvement in those areas. Who will respond? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the concern from members. As a member of the task force, in the past 3 years, my feeling is that the overall result was not that ideal. But I won't say in simple terms whether or not the project is a success or a failure. It covers a lot of factors. Education and training take a long time. Even for Germany and Belgium in recent years, they rose again in recent years in the football community. It's because they've got young players. The spectators saw their achievements. Germany and Belgium have got much better infrastructure than we. but they managed to rise again after 10 years of hard work after the year 2000. We have a group of good players. I come into frequent contact with young players. As an ordinary citizen, I watched all sorts of professional matches and youth matches. Those young people that I met, their enthusiasm and integrity are at a high level. When compared with other jurisdictions, I dare say that we should be proud of our young players. In terms of mentality and in terms of the pursuit for a future career, we're not poor. Mr. Leung Chi-chung, first of all, I have to declare that I'm the chairman of a football team in Yuen Long. Yes, we're rather concerned about football development. In recent years, I can say that when this generation reviews the past, we would say that the football industry was most prosperous in the 1970s and the 1980s. We experienced a downturn in the 1990s. In recent years, the administration invested a lot more in football, and the situation has improved. Well, the Project Phoenix has not been completed yet, so we can't assess whether or not it's a success or a failure. Anyway, more people have participated in football in recent years. That's for certain. Remarks made by members and Mr. Leung just now indicated that lack of resources is still the biggest problem. For a medium team, if you get $400 to $6 million or $6 to $7 million, it will be quite good. But as a startup, you need at least $4 million. But of course, we're subject to constraints. The government cannot subsidize professional players. I think the Secretary should consider how to support football more. In recent years, we got more football training schools, and that has led to facility problems. Priority is given to district teams and national associations. So some small teams cannot use these schools. So in old buildings and other premises, they've also set up such schools. So there is a problem. Those enthusiastic parents also bring their children there. But when the premises is substandard, the planning process experienced a lot of difficulties. So facilities is a huge obstacle to football development. Should the government not consider helping with facilities such that these football training schools can effect a more comprehensive development of football? Secretary, for the planning of a football training center, Mr. Leung mentioned the lack of resources for setting up teams. He also mentioned inadequate pitch facilities. Yes, we worked hard on a number of fronts. For training, if we have limited public resources, we'll see how we can find resources from other sources in society. We would like to seek more sponsorship. Mr. Leung, concerning football schools, we got a lot more of these schools, but we lack venues. I hope that the government can vet all these so-called football schools to see whether or not coach management is good enough. If we have more venues and premises, we'll see more such football schools, and parents will be very willing to send their children there. We're now greatly promoting five-a-side football. We try to infiltrate, so to speak, all primary and secondary schools. We try to make use of basketball courts for five-a-side matches. We're already doing that. We would like to extend that to the whole of Hong Kong. Starting from P1 to P2, these children can go all the way up to secondary schools. Well, before the Deputy Chairman speaks, I'd like to say that 4 members would like to speak and 3 for the second round. I will draw a line there. Deputy Chairman? Madam Chairman, I've been watching football matches for many years, but in recent years I attended none because I was not interested in them. Well, many Hong Kong people are concerned about premier matches elsewhere, but the number of spectators per match is ever dropping. That has attracted concerns, of course. And recently in the football community there were corruption scandals. Well, sometimes the problem emerges among referees and players. I would like to know whether the HKFA has collaborated with the ICAC in launching a comprehensive review on the situation. Take, for example, the Tourism Board. No scandal has ever happened, but we do collaborate with the ICAC. After the ICAC has reviewed the situation, it would have a comprehensive exchange with us and propose improvement measures. We're famous worldwide in this. In Hong Kong, if we want our Premier League to grow substantially, it's rather difficult because we have a limited population and limited resources. Can we send a football team to the Chinese Premier League? That will give us a good feeling. When the Hong Kong team competes with other provincial teams, that would be very attractive. Have you explored that possibility? 2 questions here. We have a very close and good collaboration with the ICAC. When every season starts, the ICAC will have a presentation for all players and teams. We also have a set of guidelines for all teams and players. On top of such monitoring, we have this Sports Radar, a worldwide corporation. This is an internationally recognized company to monitor each match. So we've commissioned them to monitor our matches, and we do have communication with the ICAC. As for the Chinese Premier League, we have been communicating with them for many years. They always welcome our participation. But they suggest that we should not start with the professional division or the first division.
Well, I'd like to ask question 1 again, because to work with the ICAC, it's not just about disseminating a message to comply, that one must comply with the law. You should also review the whole system to find loopholes, not to allow people to make use of a gray area, to review the whole system. We monitor the situation very stringently, and we also liaise closely with football teams. Football rigging happens around the world, but once we know of anything, we contact the ICAC. So for the past 2 years, we contacted the ICAC directly. We continue to supervise and monitor the situation, and indeed some offenders have been convicted. And this is the work of our cooperation with ICAC. Mr. Wu Shiwan, according to information, there are 280,000 registered football players in Hong Kong. And we have quite a large pool of football fans or spectators in Hong Kong. But in order to promote spectatorship, you need to start from young, to encourage them to watch football matches and to build an atmosphere, so to speak. So what have you done to promote children to watch football games at the pitches? You also said just now that you're going to promote five-a-side football in schools. Of course, the venue is important, but as we said a number of times in the past, in Hong Kong, most of the venues are built for proper and these venues are properly managed venues. I recall when I was young, we used to play football anywhere in just a simple playground. But now you need advanced booking, and there are requirements on the minimum number of players, etc. So apart from artificial turf pitches, apart from pitches that are managed, will you also consider for hard surface pitches that it will be in a ratio, it will be in an equal ratio as turf pitches as well, because I feel that we don't have enough venues for children to play football. And also, according to a recent survey, the physique of our children in Hong Kong is deteriorating. That also may have to do with lack of venues for children to play football and other games in the sun, and they in turn would turn to play video games instead. So what can the LCSD under the HAB do to encourage children to perform outdoor sports? This is important because if children do not like to enjoy outdoor sports, it will be difficult for us to promote football. Thank you, Mr. Wu, for your question. You've also made some suggestions. For example, how we can attract children to give up the video games and play sports such as football. Well, it's not easy. And another comment Mr. Wu made was about whether football venues should all be properly managed in such a manner. I've heard some views and suggestions, and it's been suggested that in the past some vacant sites could be used for football by children, but now we can't. I'll consider what we can do. Dr. Mpai, just now, Secretary said that much has been done to promote football in schools. And I'd like to declare that I am a board member of the Sha Tin Lam Tai Fai Secondary School, and I must say that we have never received any support from government, and we rely on our own resources. We never receive any support from Hong Kong FA, and every time we organize a football match, it takes more than $10,000 a game. So on this project Phoenix, both insiders and people outside the football industry ask about the effectiveness of football Project Phoenix, and they wonder if it should continue. And this time, the government is even stepping up, providing more resources for Project Phoenix to continue for another 5 years. But we need to be prudent because public money is involved. We are not against government support, but we should understand whether it is cost effective. You need to be public. You need to account to the public and to the world as well, because for other NSAs, these are all amateur associations. Only the Hong Kong Football Association is a commercial association, and a commercial association should be self-financed or self-sustained, to avoid the accusation of business government collusion. So if this is a commercial behavior, you should account to the public. But throughout this morning, you have said nothing about how you could assess whether you've met the performance indicators. I'm also a football fan. I'm not against support for the development of football, and it occurred to me that the government has been doing a poor job in promoting constitutional development or improving people's livelihood, and many question CY Leung's governance. So we should tackle the problem at source. We understand that Hong Kong is the first country in Asia to promote football, and now we've been overtaken by many countries in Asia, such as Japan, Singapore, and Indonesia, and South Korea. So, Secretary, I'd like you to comment on this. Has it to do with the leadership or management of Hong Kong Football Association? I'm not trying to criticize anyone, but we need to tackle the problem at source. Has it to do with the leadership and management of Hong Kong FA, that the football industry in Hong Kong is bleak at the moment, and also for the football task force, there is no football player, neither football player nor coach in its composition. So you may give an impression of outsiders leading insiders. You should have members of the FTF who are either experienced coaches or players. I'm not questioning the qualifications of existing members, but is it a problem that we do not have any football coaches in the FTF? And also on football style, I understand different styles for different countries, Brazil, England, etc. But what does it mean by Hong Kong football style? Well, your time is up. I may have to give you another time for Secretary to answer. Well, those are very good questions, and you don't allow Secretary to answer. I'll use my own time to invite Secretary to answer, Mr. Yip Kin Yun. Thank you, Chair. For Project Phoenix, I asked some of my friends who are in the football sector, and they said that there have been much development in recent years in terms of more and more young people taking part in the sports. And yet there are also problems. Resources is one. Another problem is venue. There are more pitches now, but it still cannot meet the increasing demand for more sessions because of more teams and more matches. So the teams find it even more difficult to find available pitches. If you want to cultivate good players, you need to give them more training sessions. And if you don't have readily available venues, how can you do that? For the best football teams, they can secure pitches, but not other teams such as women's football teams or youth training teams, and they do not have regular training grounds, and they must compete resources with the public. So if you want Hong Kong the standard of football to be improved, you need to resolve these key problems. So can you arrange regular venues for these teams that require regular training? In particular, I understand for new venues, separate sessions may be available to the teams. So something should be done in this regard. Secondly, about schools. We understand for Tung Ching schools, they have a very good football team, but I wonder if there could be more active cooperation and collaboration. Many secondary school students also play football, and sometimes they play on behalf of schools, and many parents are concerned about their academic results. And will there be resource available for these students to attend tuition class? Because in other countries they have dedicated staff to accompany football players as they take part in matches to make sure that they can keep up with the academic work. Also, in an advertisement, it points out the problem in Hong Kong. Let's say United Nations Children Fund advertisement or API, and in that API, a child was staring at the playground, and the child would like to play football, but the parents has taken him away because he has to do homework, and according to the UN standard, they should have at least 1 hour of playing time each day. So can you discuss, can you tell us how you could allow more time for children to play football? Sorry, no time to respond, Dr. Helena Wong. I'd like to follow up on Mr. Wu's question. To promote the culture of football in Hong Kong, I hope the Secretary could consider making available some venues that do not require advanced booking in the community, so that we could do away with formalities. Some members of the public also asked whether you could set up a monthly ticket system for spectators to watch football matches, or concessionary fares for students,
or even free matches, such that more people will be interested in watching matches. I'd like to ask about women's football. What concrete plans does the Hong Kong FA have to promote women's football? You have this women's grassroots program, enhancing by 170%. I'd like to know the actual number of people involved. What promotional plans do you have for women's football? Because all along, football seemed to be something for men. In Asia, we have such promotion plans elsewhere. So for the HKFA, any promotion plan for football, for women's football, in terms of players and spectators, I'd refer to Mr. Leung for monthly tickets. And then,
in terms of season tickets, certainly it's open to the clubs themselves to have this system, and in fact at least one of the current Hong Kong Premier League clubs does have a season ticket system. I'm a season ticket holder at Tai Po, so I know for a fact that they do have that. In terms of juniors, young people watching football, currently I think the entry price for students is $20 to go and watch a football match. That is already quite at the low end of any form of entertainment. And I'm aware that some clubs actually do allow free entry to students also to go and watch matches. Just in terms of the question asked earlier about, about less formal management of football pitches, we still do have a large number of hard mini soccer pitches that are available for people to just turn up and play, and people do still do this. We're also continuing to build new mini soccer pitches. We have a total of 6, 5 or 7-a-side hard surface mini soccer pitches in our building programme between now and 2017 in Kwun Tong, in Central and Western, in Yulong and in some SOPO districts, all in our programme for development. So we will continue to provide these unofficial types of football facility for people to play what is called gai ball, people just go down and play. Maybe Brian can just talk about girls' football.
關女子啊，黃議員，女子足球嗰度咧。
Dr. Wong, I think members may not understand that in the past we have a Hong Kong Women's Football Association, which was not under us. In recent years, women's football's development has not been good. So we try to cover that association under us in the past few years. I was surprised to see that under the Home Affairs Department, a third of the resources went to women's football. And in fact, we've started Women's Football League. We've commissioned many women coaches. And we've got a lot more women players. As for free matches for students, we are unable to do so, because the Home Affairs Department stipulated that only 5% of the tickets for each match should be offered free. So for 1,000 spectators, we can only offer 50 free tickets. Well, finally, my turn. Just now, I noted that many members were interested in the subject, and many questions have not been answered, including Mr. Ma Fung Kwok's question on mini soccer matches and Lam Tai Fai's question about the history of football. Well, I want a list from the task force, as well as football style, so to speak. And then Mr. Kit Yun asked about support in terms of education, such that more students will be engaged in football. Madam Chairman, if you don't mind, I'll provide you with a supplementary paper. Today I've invited Professor Lui here. I'd like him to offer some responses as well. Professor Lui? Maybe I'll speak in broader terms. I have been in the task force for a few years. My feeling is that in recent years, we're heading towards formalization of football. Well, this may not be a criticism. In the past, we have made use of international football days for international football matches, but that was not done on a regular basis. And now that has become much more orderly. For training programs, sending of players overseas, etc., we've made improvement. We've also made improvement in terms of women's football. Given the size of Hong Kong, it will be quite difficult to industrialize, so to speak, or professionalize football. We can adopt different types of performance indicators to measure improvement. For example, we should ask, can we train good players? Can football development be more organized and formalized in future? Can we establish connection between the general public and football clubs, etc., etc.? These are broad questions. Secretary, any supplement? I'd just like to address Dr. Lam's point about the governance of HKFA. I think the leadership and governance of the HKFA have improved, although there's still room for improvement. In the LegCo, when we discussed football development, a member once said that the HKFA is beyond rescue. He said that that would be even more difficult than constitutional reform. For constitutional reform, we only need a 2/3 majority support among members. But for the Constitution of Hong Kong FA, a 3/4 majority is required. And later, the Constitution of the Hong Kong FA was amended. What about mini soccer and education? Any supplement? Mr. McKinley?
On very, very quickly, in the FA's 5-year strategic plan, there is a plan to have at least 20,000 people annually playing in structured futsal, which is the international term for mini football, futsal tournaments and competitions. So this is an integrated part of the 5-year strategic plan for the HKFA.
好，咁咧就有3位議員表示第。
Three members would like to speak for a second round. Only 1 minute each, because we're behind schedule already. Dr. Chang Lai-wan. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to ask this. School participation is very important. Just now, our colleagues said that it's difficult to book venues. I think that's true. If it is a football pitch, then you will give priority to football matches. It's only after that that you will grant the venue to other events. You should be strict on that rule, because football should come first. There are a lot of district activities. No matter what, you should be clear on your rules and regulations. So I suggest that the Secretary be strict on that. That is, to give football priority for the use of football pitches. And in Hong Kong, each district should have a sport. For example, in Australia, their sport is basketball. Mr. Ma Fong Kwok, in promoting football, Mr. Leung mentioned a number of efforts. Can we convert the basketball court in each school such that it can be used for football as well, mini football as well? Any subvention for FA?
Discussion with the Education Bureau about converting any of the school playgrounds to formal dual use, but I think in terms of informal use of school facilities for a multiple type of sports, I don't think that should be a problem for individual schools to organise.
Any government subvention for the Mini Soccer Association, for example? Mini Soccer Association? Oh, yes, it receives hundreds of thousands of dollars of subvention from the LCSD. Mr. Kenneth Leung, we have to obtain the overall report of the Project Phoenix, and we should continue to discuss the 5-year strategic plan. The officials told us that all those would be possible, so act as soon as possible. And the next question is, what's the football style of Hong Kong? We know the football style of southern China. Well, I don't understand those performance indicators. What's meant by the Hong Kong football style? Well, let me answer that question. We have Brazilian style, German style, Holland style, and so forth. In Hong Kong, we're still exploring this. In the past, on mainland China, the southern style was different from the northern style because northern people were more, they have a bigger build than the southern nationals. And for the southern China players, they are more skillful. Dr. Lam Tai Fai, I'd like to ask a follow-up question. What's Hong Kong's football style? Hong Kong players' build is more or less the same as that of Japan and South Korea. Well, all your words will impact on future development. Well, let me first answer the question. First of all, throughout the world, this so-called style, what can you be more focused? What sort of Hong Kong football style would you like to develop? Well, thank you, Dr. Lam. Unfortunately, I did not participate in the development of Hong Kong's football style. Otherwise, I would really be able to present my view. Well, please allow the speaker to answer a question first. Mr. Lee, I'm answering your question, Dr. Lam. If you watch recent matches, the average time spent by each player has been reduced, has decreased. Well, that's not what style is. I don't want to waste my 1 minute, but you have already wasted your 1 minute. I've already exercised my discretion to allow for more discussion. Mr. Lee, any more short answers on style? In my opinion, style is to develop your strengths and reduce your weaknesses. Hong Kong style is to address Hong Kong's weaknesses, for example, in terms of build and skills. And we've developed a skill for group attack, so to speak. We've not yet have foundation training to develop our own football style. Well, we've spent a great deal of time on this issue. Members have made suggestions and comments. And Secretary, please give us those papers that you've promised. As for coordination with the FA and so forth, please continue with your hard work. Let's conclude this item then. Next item on the agenda, outcome of the public consultation on enhanced measures against shopfront extensions. Please invite the government representatives to come into the conference room. Thank you, the previous team. All LegCo members have been invited to participate in this discussion in relation to legislation. The Secretariat has also prepared a background brief for members, and that has been distributed to you before the meeting.
局長係咪我？
Well, if the officials are ready, then we can start.
Yes, let's continue with our meeting. Secretary, please walk us through the paper. Madam Chair, in this session, I'd like to report to members the public consultation on the enhanced measures against shopfront extensions, the views received, and the way forward. Well, for the occupation of public places by shops in front or adjacent to the premises for the purpose of conducting business, it's highly inconvenient for the community, and we've also often received complaints from the community. The government at present tackles the problem through 1. Law enforcement by individual departments, 2. Interdepartmental joint operations, 3. Collaboration with district councils, and 4. Public education and publicity. Last year, we conducted a public consultation on this topic. The public consultation document focused particularly on enforcement measures and community and DC's involvement. During the 4-month consultation period, we received a total of 1,100 written submissions. LegCo members, DC members, also on different occasions, gave us valuable views to show their concerns on this topic. The relevant departments, after careful consideration, have proposed the way forward for tackling SFE. First of all, there is general support for a multi-pronged approach for the government to tackle SFE by the government. In particular, enforcement should be enhanced. One of the proposal is to have a fixed penalty system as a new enforcement measure to more expeditiously deal with SFE. The fixed penalty system will not replace other existing measures such as summons. Apart from that, the respondents expressed general support to the fixed penalty system. Some view that the details of the fixed penalty system should be considered carefully to achieve deterrence effect. On the level of fixed penalty, the proposal is $1,500. On enforcement strategy and details of the system, we will continue to give it a careful consideration, and we're going to table an amendment bill in the 2015-16 legislative session. On enhanced enforcement, different departments have stepped up their effort to tackle SFE. For example, the FEHD has modified their strategy and policy with sufficient evidence. They are going to step up the enforcement action against SFE, and where appropriate, they're going to confiscate or seize the relevant items related to SFE to increase deterrence. For repeated offenders and for shops occupying area outside the permitted area, they'll also step up enforcement. In terms of resources and enforcement action, other government departments have also stepped up their effort, and small-scale joint operation will also be conducted by different government departments to tackle the problem more expeditiously. It shows the government's determination in tackling the problem. Now, on the advisory role of DCs, according to the views collected, the DCs' views are recognized, and we will prioritize our effort and also consider DCs' views, and we'll follow the existing practice. On black spots, we will consult the DCs, also the tolerated areas to be designated. On public education publicity, we'll also make more effort to raise the public awareness of the legal consequences of SFE. On the whole, we're going to step up measures to tackle SFEs, and I'll be happy to take questions from members along with my team. We have a list of government representatives attending and it's been forwarded to members, including Mr. Patrick Lee, Deputy Director of Home Affairs, Ms. Charmaine Wong, the Assistant Director of Home Affairs, and also representatives from the FEHD, Police, Lands Department, Buildings Department, and relevant representatives can respond to questions. We have 5 members: Poon Siu Ping, Ann Chang, Helena Wong, Ray Chan, Dr. Kenneth Chan, and Leung Chi Chang, and also Deputy Chairman. 7 members altogether. 4 minutes each. Mr. Poon Siu Ping. Thank you, Chair. My concern is about enforcement arrangement. I received a comment from the union of the FEHD that after a meeting, 3 positions would be empowered to undertake the fixed penalty system. That includes the FEHD inspector, foreman, and hawker control. My question is this: is the administration going to increase manpower and increase remuneration? Because for the inspector and hawker control officer rank, they have different remuneration and benefits. So the next question is about training for these personnel on effective enforcement. And thirdly, whether the government will further consult frontline officers. Who would like to respond? Director of Food and Environmental Hygiene. Thank you, member, for the question. On this question, definitely the department will consult frontline staff on the proposed fixed penalty system if it is implemented in future. We'll consult them and discuss with them the details of their work, and the relevant guidelines will be prepared and training will be provided. So you don't have a decision yet, because according to the labor unions of the FEHD, they have strong views on the department's arrangement. Is it that the relevant guidelines will be prepared in the legislative amendment exercise? Yes. We already have preliminary consultation with representatives of the labor unions, and we are still discussing the details. Now, Mr. Poon Siu Ping talked about the strong views from frontline staff, so please consult them when you prepare the guidelines. Dr. Ann Chang. Thank you, Chair. I welcome the government's initiative. After making an effort for many years, we now have a way forward, and we often hear the phrase in the government APIs, please spare me away, let me pass. And now for this proposal, yes, there are improvements, but if we are really to tackle the problem, then, for example, for the fixed penalty system, the level of fixed penalty is set at 1,500, and I think many shops would already factor this in as part of the cost, and they're going to pay 1,500 per month as part of their cost, so that they can display goods in front of their shops, and it's cheaper than paying rent. So I agree that there should be a system of warning before or caution before enforcement, and also warning before prosecution. That means we could advise or warn twice. Well, first, the first prosecution may entail a fine of 1,500. What about the second time? Are you going to increase the level of penalty to 2,000 or 3,000? It should be on a progressive scale. Secretary, for shop operators to be deterred from placing goods in front. Just like illegal parking, they're willing to pay the fixed penalty as part of their cost. So, Secretary, for repeated offenders, you need to double the fine. Director, will you consider it? Thank you, Dr. An Chang, for your comment. For the fixed penalty system, we want to stress that this proposal is not just not the only enforcement tool. We also have the provision in relation to hawking under the Public Health and Municipal Services Ordinance. Apart from issuing summons against offenders, the paraphernalia will also be seized, and this is significant deterrence. And we're only providing an additional enforcement tool, namely the fixed penalty system. Although we're not satisfied with the dropping, with the number of complaints, which is dropping yet. At this moment, we are proposing the fixed penalty system as an additional enforcement tool, so that when these tools work together, we will increase deterrence. For example, a $1,500 fixed penalty. If this still doesn't work, can we sue them, or can we book them for illegal hawking and seize their goods, because this will pose a greater deterrence. As for how these tools can be implemented in order to achieve the greatest deterrence, this will be the detail for our discussion later. Dr. Wong. I've also received a lot of complaints from members of the public on SFE, in particular in Mong Kok and Prince Edward and Hong Ham North District, Tuen Mun, Tsuen Wan. The flower market is an example. It's in my constituency. As you can see, Prince Edward and Mong Kok. Some pharmacies or vegetable stores in Hong Ham and dry seafood shops. The operators of these shops are also involved in SFE, and sometimes the pavements become so narrow that pedestrians cannot pass. After issuing this public consultation document, Lau Chun Ye, Feng Men told these district, our DP members at the district level also made an effort, and we also wrote to the Secretary on the 11th of July to reflect the views of the local community. And according to our questionnaire survey, in Prince Edward, in Mong Kok, 76% of the respondents agree that SFE is very serious at the moment, and 93% agree that the government should step up the enforcement effort against SFEs. That means your effort is not sufficient at the moment. As for fixed penalty system, 84% of the residents agreed that it be introduced, and that's why we wrote to you inviting you to introduce the fixed penalty system. 41% of the respondents agreed that it should be set at $1,500 above, and there are also other suggestions, 1,000 to 1,500, etc. But overall speaking, for the views collected in our survey, there is majority support for $1,500 as the level of fine. However, if you fine the offender $1,500 a day. They may consider it part of the cost. After you issue a fixed penalty ticket, they may immediately display goods on the pavement again. So it's just like an illegal parking ticket. If you can issue more than one ticket a day, how many times can you tell us how many times or how many tickets can you issue a day if he repeats the offense? That's the first question.
The next question is, some people ask if they support 1,500 per ticket. Then if there are 10 times per day or 20 times per day for a black spot shop, can you issue a heavier penalty, that is by way of triple tickets? That is, the fixed penalty will increase as the number of offences increases. Can super tickets be issued? Can you consider that? Director? First of all, I'd like to thank members for their support of a fixed penalty system. I think members were correct. In future, when we consider our strategy for law enforcement, we'll consider what we should do for repeated offences. In future, we won't just rely on fixed penalty tickets. We have existing laws as well. We would like to see how we can integrate this new law with existing laws. For example, illegal hawking. The department can arrest the hawker concerned and confiscate the goods. That will have a deterrent effect on the shops and individuals concerned. Can more fixed penalty tickets be issued? As I said, this fixed penalty ticket system is nothing new. Under the Summary Offences Ordinance Section 4A, street obstruction is already an offence. This time we propose summonses. The downside is that the prosecution time will be longer. Well, can we issue a summons after repeated tickets were issued, because the penalty will be up to $5,000? But what about a super ticket? We'll consider that as well. Mr. Chan Chi-chun? Thank you, Chairman. With more and more serious street obstruction by these shop extensions, we don't have strong opposition to the proposal. But the guidelines should be clear and law enforcement must be fair and reasonable. In paragraph 10, it said that this is enhanced enforcement, which will not replace existing summonses systems. So when will you issue fixed penalty tickets? When will you issue summonses? When will goods be confiscated? When will decision be made? Will one offense attract more than one prosecution and more than one ticket? For a big chain store, it's $1,500. For an elderly lady under the staircase is also $1,500. So can we have a tiered system for this penalty system? As for excretion, at present, there's already a system to govern that. In future, when you enhance law enforcement, how will you go about discretion? Can you have clearer guidelines and more expeditious handling? Director, I'd like to thank Mr. Chen Chi-chun for his remarks. Yes, law enforcement must be fair and reasonable, and guidelines must be clear. Precisely because of that, apart from legislative amendment, we have to formulate clear guidelines for law enforcement and to have matching law enforcement tools so as to enhance the deterrent effect. As to which law to invoke, we'll discuss with the law enforcement departments. For example, the severity of obstruction. That may decide on the strength of law enforcement. Mr. Chan is correct. We have at present 8 tolerance spots or areas. Well, if councillors and residents so agree, we can decide on more tolerance areas. But the guidelines are clear, the principles are clear. Apart from the views of shops and residents, the most important consideration is whether or not the shop obstruction will pose inconvenience or even hazards to pedestrians and motorists. We'll stick to those principles in decision-making. My first question is, will one offence attract more than one prosecution? That is, to attract a fixed penalty ticket as well as summonses. Well, we'll study in detail the strategy for law enforcement. We'll also discuss with the Department of Justice. Maybe double prosecution is not allowed in law. After issuing a fixed penalty ticket, if law enforcement is still not effective, after a period of time, can we adopt other law enforcement measures? I think we'll work on our strategy. Chairman, I have to make this point very clear, because you may come early in the morning and issue a fixed penalty ticket. In the evening, you come again to issue a summonses, asking me to appear in court. That may be disturbing the shops. So the guidelines must be very clear. Not even the DOJ is clear on this. Even for the injunction-related offences, we had double prosecution cases as well. Well, 6 more members would like to speak. 4 minutes each. Oh, 7. All right. I have to draw a line there. Time is tight. Mr. Kenneth Chan. Yes, thank you, Chairman. Basically, the Civic Party welcomes the major direction of these proposals. The problem has been with us for a long, long time. We have to enhance the law enforcement regime. We should send out a helpful message to the public. But at the same time, we have to strike a balance. Sometimes you have to be compassionate as well. Well, there are 7 criteria proposed to be discussed with district councils. Community or street black spots will have to be defined. Tolerance areas have to be defined as well. Now we're in January 2015. Do you have a list of black spots and tolerated areas for the information of the public? On the one hand, you have to enforce the law. Frontliners have to act. At the same time, members of the public are complaining through hotline 1823. And then we have to work on exemption and exempted black spots. Sometimes members of the public would like to find out where these black spots and tolerated areas are. They may complain, but in vain. Then they may complain to district councillors. Well, maybe these are not conflicts, but dilemma. So you have to define all these. Can you produce a clearer list of black spots and tolerated areas? Director, yes, we do have such a list at the moment. Earlier, I have submitted the list to this panel. There are 8 black spots, or rather 8 tolerated areas, 49 black spots. For discretion to be exercised, we have to discuss with district councillors, public representatives, and shop representatives. As I said, we don't just look at the views received. Most importantly, we have to see whether there's any hazard to pedestrians and motorists. And we have to see whether there's any district characteristics involved, like the area around Flower Market Road. Now, all these will be considered altogether in one go. We have one strategy, and we have to do publicity. law enforcement alone won't work. We must all subscribe to the concept that street obstruction is not all right. Well, there's one factor that you should consider in educating shops and members of the public. What is the flower market area? Is it a black spot or a tolerated area? A tolerated area. But in 4.2 of the report, you propose enhanced law enforcement. Well, that's a tolerated area. But what if a certain site is both a black spot and a tolerated area? If law enforcement and control are not clear enough, if the extended areas exceed the tolerated space, then we'll have to take action. Say if it is 3 feet, but you occupy 5 feet, then we'll have to enhance enforcement. That's precisely what's in the paper. The FEHD will adjust its strategies to enforce the law immediately when the offense goes beyond the tolerance limit. Mr. Leung Chi-Cheng, in the paper, one point is mentioned. That's a special point, and that is there must be somebody to enforce the law. At the moment, you're enforcing the law and you have a regulatory regime. For this fixed penalty system proposed, you must have somebody to act as law enforcers. After you have defined a site as a black spot, you have to send law enforcers regularly and frequently there to enforce the law. Otherwise, the regime won't be effective. It's just like what our colleague said. If you enforce the law rather infrequently, these shops will only treat the penalty as part of their operational cost. So will you consider increasing your manpower? You have to educate the public, caution the public, and so forth. And you have to identify the problems in each and every black spot before you can sound out a caution before enforcement. So you need to increase manpower, even in terms of education. Is the government prepared to increase manpower? If not, I don't think any department will be willing to swallow this additional task. Director, well, for example, in Yuen Long, we got a pioneer project for street obstruction, and we see that it's effective. The department will get ready sufficient resources for these proposed new action. Well, you said that departments will be prepared. Any extra preparation for the Pioneer project? At least you should have $5 million per district. What level of new resources are you expecting? And how much extra manpower you get? Don't just throw the ideas at the LegCo. You have to increase your internal departmental resources because prosecution has to be taken out by people. Yes, I agree. For our law enforcement strategy, we're now preparing a new law, and together with the other law enforcement departments will enforce the laws. And we must have matching resources, so we'll have a full set of strategies in the production of guidelines, in law enforcement, etc. Next, Deputy Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. I also agree to the proposed fixed penalty system, our pavements will remain the same in width, but we got more and more pedestrians. If we don't act, these shopfront extensions will affect people's daily living. We have seen goods being placed on pavements and by the roadside. Will you adopt this $1,500 fixed penalty system on such occurrences? After legislation, the FEHD will be responsible for issuing fixed penalty tickets and summonses.
But sometimes we receive complaints about UBWs, about obstruction of the pavement with goods. The FGHD may sometimes say that it's not under their department's purview, but another department. But my question is, maybe the FGHD is not responsible for enforcement in this regard, but is it responsible for referring the case to the departments concerned? For example, for UBW cases, otherwise the public may feel that the department is being very bureaucratic. Who is going to respond to the complaint? Deputy Director. Well, apart from obstruction of public places, if other offences are involved, then the other relevant departments will definitely take action in accordance with the relevant legislation. We agree that street obstruction may not only involve one department, it may also involve the buildings department, FEHD, or even the police. That's why at the DMC, District Management Committee, it's also agreed that we should step up action. And for more complex cases, the district officer may be notified to coordinate matters. We're talking, well, you were referring to podium with UBWs, for example, and we can have a joint operation by departments like the buildings department, FEHD, etc. Last year there was 1,200 such operations, and for operations coordinated by the district officer, there were 400 such operations, and we hope by doing so we could step up our control in the coming year. Now back to my question: is the FEHD responsible for referring such cases of UBW or street obstruction to other departments? Will the FEHD take the initiative to, say, kickstart a joint operation or not? Second question, as I said just now, there are also cases of placing goods on the side of the road or illegal occupation of parking spaces. See if the EPD or the FHD will supplement my answer, but definitely we're going to step up our enforcement effort. You're talking about obstruction of public places under Cap 220. Under the Summary Offences Ordinance, with sufficient evidence, enforcement action can be taken, but it depends on what law has been breached. If it's illegal parking, maybe enforcement action can be taken and prosecute the offender for illegal parking. Maybe my colleagues can supplement the answer. Well, we don't have time. Next question, Dr. Lam Tai Fai. I think it's a very challenging task in relation to tackling SFE, be it the police, FEHD, the buildings department. They all face a huge challenge because Hong Kong is a very crowded and small place. and people need to make a living. We don't have many places to go for entertainment, and dining may be our only entertainment. If a blanket approach is taken, it may affect shop operators' livelihood or even their staff. At the same time, there are also complaints from the public in relation to noise, to fire safety, etc. And I fully appreciate the challenges faced by the government in striking a balance. And I nowadays dare not patronize the shops involved in SFE because I seem to be encouraging them. Just like Fa Hoi or the flower market. During festive seasons, if they do not put out flowers for sale, then it may be a disappointment for many because they would like to buy flowers for the season. So I think it's very important to strike a proper balance. For some offenders, however, I resent them because they have fixtures to occupy the place. Maybe you may call me. You can say I have double standard. For some street stalls, they may erect structures in the day and dismantle the structure at night, and this is in my standard tolerable, but not in the case of a fixed structure. For example, some may extend their garage onto the road, and they put tools and other equipment on the road, and it affects road safety. For some other cases, they may just occupy the public place or a small portion of the public place, and during the day and at night they just retrieve everything. I'm not saying that the department should turn a blind eye to these cases, but in some circumstances, some flexibility should be given. Is that correct? I agree with the honourable member that we should be flexible. We consider how serious the street obstruction is, how much nuisance is caused, and Dr. Lam just now quoted some examples. We hope that guidelines could be prepared for frontline officers to consider which enforcement tool to be used to achieve the greatest effectiveness. Like Mr. Lam said, we must strike a balance. At the same time, we must also achieve deterrence. That's why we propose a multi-pronged approach. For example, for tolerated areas, we designate some tolerated areas. If it's part of the local characteristic, and if it's also tolerated by the district council, then you should step up the communication with the district councils because that will help you find the proper balance. Next, Mr. Frankie Yik. Thank you, Madam Chair. We have two members from our party, Liberal Party, Mr. Vincent Fang and Mr. Tommy Zhang, representing their industries, the catering industry and the retail industry, and they have asked me to express their views on their behalf and that they do not support the proposal. It is important to strike a balance. Of course, I don't think obstruction of public places is appropriate, but at certain occasions, I do find it appropriate. Al fresco dining, this is also popular in other countries. Maybe the government can assist them to make applications to turn their business into legal business. It's pointless to book them because for larger corporations, they won't be engaged in SFEs. Usually, it's the smaller SMEs or even micro enterprises which engage in SFE. If you want to deter them, then in the end, both the operators and the staff would be affected. And Dr. M. Chang also mentioned, and as set out in the paper, a more human-based approach can be taken. For example, caution before enforcement or warning before prosecution. You need to reserve flexibility and to strike a proper balance. For Fahoy, as an example, I sometimes go there as well. But if you force all operators to use their shop space only, I believe nobody would go there, and in the end there could be a fight. Yes, we agree very much that we need to strike a balance, and the views of the DCs are also very important. On implementation, we give clear guidelines to our staff, and on striking a balance, we propose tolerated areas. For some industries, the FEHD, in fact, now has a one-stop service for alfresco or dining or outdoor dining area, and the FEHD does assist some operators in getting license to operate outdoors, and this is a flexible arrangement because we can revise the license terms based on the views of the local community, the local environment, etc. Mr. Michael Tian. Madam Chair, I think we all agree that a balance is necessary, but I find it somewhat confused. Have you considered the plight of frontline staff? You ask frontline staff to enforce the law, and in some areas there could be dubious elements, and if you ask them to enforce the law there, the officers may get beaten up. Therefore, you need to set out really objective criteria in your guidelines. Well, even in the business sector, things are not always fair. For retail industry, what's the most important is the unit rental cost. For those for offenders, the unit rental cost would be lower, so it's not fair. Is it really fair for standalone shops or small enterprises? I think some sympathy should be given. But these shops sometimes would occupy the adjacent the space in front, and also the shops adjacent, and its turnover may be even higher than a franchise store. So it's really fair. There should be objective criteria for implementing the fixed penalty system. For example, if SFE is allowed, then it should not occupy more than half of the pavement, so that at least pedestrians can pass can use the the pavement, and you must not encroach on other shops areas. During special occasions, say Valentine's Day, you may choose not to enforce the law, and on other occasions, you may set an objective criteria, say not to encroach more than 50% of the pavement for easier enforcement. Well, if you only take action when there are more and more pedestrians using the pavement, then the operator may argue with you. So we need a consensus, and we need an objective standard. Half of the pavement is already very lenient on shop operators. The shop operators or pedestrians may still find it crowded, but it's better than having to walk onto the road. For restaurants upstairs, or also residents living upstairs, they also suffer a lot because for the restaurant downstairs, the patrons may stay there until the middle of the night. And if you put small tables outside, the nuisance cost may be smaller than one big table.
Thank you. In terms of law enforcement strategies, we'll consider issuing clear guidelines to our colleagues. As I said, this is not a brand new offense. Under the Summary Offences Ordinance, this is already an offense. What's meant by street obstruction? Our law enforcement departments have rich experience. Under what circumstances should we trigger the law enforcement action? We'll consider all these details in law enforcement. It's my turn. I support the proposals in the report in general. And members mentioned the point of balance. Now, what's your idea at the moment? I think you have to continuously discuss with district councils. I believe there will be controversy. Different districts have different characteristics, and members of the public have different views at different times. Well, this will be a test of your skills. What about the non-black spots? Is it your initial idea that you won't enforce the law in non-black spots, or you will adopt equal treatment? At the moment, you're mainly about shopfront extensions, but these people are mobile. Some operators are already occupying the roads and pavements on a prolonged basis. So what action will you consider against them? For law enforcement, we're not saying that we won't enforce the law in non-black spots. We're duty-bound to enforce the law. We'll enforce law enforcement in black spots because our resources are limited. Well, but what about law enforcement in black spots or at black spots? Will you be very strict in terms of principle? Well, a colleague mentioned half of the pavement. Does that mean that every shop will automatically get half of the pavement? Well, we have provisions for street obstruction. Illegal hawking is another offense that we can invoke. We don't need to calculate the percentage of pavement occupied. So long as there is illegal hawking, our departments can enforce the law. This is just an example. We don't just have one or two law enforcement tools. We have multi-law enforcement tools. It depends on which law has been breached. And our colleagues will take action accordingly. As for other aspects of street management, it depends on which law is breached and which department is responsible. Sometimes it may involve more than one department. The FEHD will seek assistance from other departments when necessary. And we are already doing that. For more complicated cases, the DMC under the district officers can also be involved. Then we should ask the FEHD to address the concern of the deputy chairman. Are you effectively managing our roads and pavements? My impression is not. Thank you for the question. Concerning street obstruction, as mentioned, we'll examine which law is breached. Say for illegal hawking in a public place, we can prosecute the offender for illegal hawking. Well, if somebody obstructs street cleansing, we have another piece of legislation to invoke. But it's for you to decide what is obstructing street cleansing? Anything on the road or pavement will obstruct street cleansing, right? Well, not necessarily. Under certain circumstances, if something is placed on the carriageway, we'll refer to the relevant departments for a possible joint operation. Sometimes we launch joint operations together with the police, for example. We're actually behind schedule. We've exceeded our scheduled finishing time. I believe issues will still be discussed at the Ensuing Bills Committee. And please consider members' views in detail in relation to law enforcement. Any other business? No other business? Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.